Okay, so we've done the cutout with a white background. Now we need to do a cutout that's not on a white background. So there's a little bit different method that we'll go to. We'll do some of what we've already done, but we have to incorporate some other tactics to do this as well. So I'm going to go ahead and open. Remember yesterday was when I recorded it. Remember when we did the video of Adobe Bridge and how to save off different files? So now we're going to go in and we're going to open. I'm going to go back up to my Google Drive, to the shared drives, to the 2021-2022 summer spread. And we're talking about the summer spread specifically, and that's where we downloaded this fun little picture of Kinsley. So what's the first things that we're supposed to do? Duplicate the layer, Control J, duplicate the layer, poke the eyeball, and add the mask. Okay, duplicate, poke, and add. Duplicate, poke, and add. You got to remember those things. Got to duplicate the layer, Control J. Okay, so now we're going to work a little bit with Kinsley. So we're gonna start off. We're gonna go and see what Photoshop can do with the select subject. Same thing that we used when we did the original cutout. It's gonna have a hard time with the hair. So let's go zoom in and see what it's got. So it did pretty well in there. Even got all of her shoe, so that's pretty good. Missed a little bit of this, so I'm going to use the L key again for lasso. Hover over it, you can see what it is. L is lasso. So I'm going to add to this selection, and to do that we're going to hold down the shift key. Now just so you know, when you add on, and you don't try to add a whole bunch of stuff, this plus thing goes kind of wonky. But it's going to be the same thing where I'm going to click where I want to start, but in this case we're going to hold the shift key and the alt key both at the same time. Now I can let go of my mouse because it's going to turn that into that lasso. And then I'm going to select into the subject that's already selected, and you can let go of your mouse and it's going to go right, let go of your mouse and then your keys, and it automatically goes back and selects that. So again, I'm going to shift, click where I want it to go, hold down the alt key to give me that little magic wand thing, and then I let go and it goes back to where that selection was. And see this little piece of hair? Nobody knows that it was there, so you don't have to go back and capture every little piece of it. Okay, so shift, click, alt, and click into. Okay, this part of her hair is pretty consistent that it's going to be there, so I'm going to do the add to this selection as well. So I'm going to shift, hold down the shift, hold down the mouse, hold down the alt key. Now I can let go of the mouse and go back up here and select, and then let go. All right, the hair, we're going to come back to the hair. I'm going to go background here, shift, click where we want to start, hold down the alt, and I can let go of the mouse now, and I can go in here and I can capture the rest of her shirt. Select into the selection, let go of everything, and it goes back and captures it all. Okay, we don't need to see the little string, that's fine. Okay, so we've got everything selected that we need to, except for this hair. Okay, so again, I'm not going to get all of it. I'm just going to attempt to get everything. So I'm going to go over here and click this little mask. This is a quick mask, the quick mask mode. You can do the Q if you want to. That's one that I've never really been able to remember, so I just click the quick mask. Okay, so when Photoshop tries to select this person, if it's a hard edge, like the difference between the background and her white sweater or any of the other stuff, hold down the space bar and you can click and drag and move it and kind of throw it. Her jeans in the grass, her shoes in the grass. So any of that stuff, Photoshop's going to give you a pretty good hard edge. But when it comes to the hair is just kind of a pain in the butt. But we're going to fix it. We're going to get it. So how do we do it? Remember that brush tool that we use? Remember, black conceals, white reveals. Okay, so I'm on the brush tool, and I'm going to get my little mouse going here, and I'm going to make it a soft edge because hair is not really as hard as what you think it is. Okay, black conceals, white reveals. So if I painted black right now, it's going to put it over the top of it. Okay, but I want to use white. Use the X key, flip back and forth. You see it going back and forth. This is not my mouse clicking, this is my keyboard. But I want white. So I'm going to come up over here and I'm going to paint around her hair. Photoshop is trying to make it a little bit of a soft edge, so because it doesn't really know where the edge really is, so it's trying to make it soft. And I'm going to come back in here and I'm going to make it a little bit hard. Okay, now this is going to seem counterintuitive, but I'm going to switch this to black because, again, we don't have to make it precise and exact. And none of this to me truly says that it's really capturing everything. I know there are some new settings in Photoshop that might be able to capture some of this, but I'm not thinking it's going to do a great job because it's not, it doesn't have a white background on here. But we definitely want to capture some of this flare on here. So I'm going to come back with the brush tool. There's a couple of different things you can do. You can come back with the brush. You can come back with this smudge tool. The smudge tool is kind of cool. Let me show you what the smudge tool does. So this wants to know how hard you want to press. So if we press 100%, it looks really hard edged. This is another one of those tools that uses your brush tool settings. Alt and right click is what we get to here. Alt and right click. So I want to make it really small, and I want that hardness to be 0. Okay, and then I'm also going to come up here. If you have the strength set to 100, it does whatever you do to it for as long as you do it. But if you do it just a little bit softer, you click and drag, and basically what this is doing is it's dragging whatever's out here. In this case, it's the masked part. Dragging it over here, and see how it's taking some of the taking the hair into that space. But if you go the opposite direction, you smudge the red into that area, which is not what we want in this case. Sometimes you will, sometimes you won't, but not right now. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and make this pretty close to 100 because I really want to get down here, and I want to I'm just going to draw this in so it kind of looks like her hair. So you can see where it is. And we can come back in here and make it a little bit softer with this nifty little blur tool. But right now we're still using a smudge tool. Didn't like that one. Some others over here. Okay, so now we have some of this green is starting to come through, so I'm going to stop where I'm at so I don't make it, I can still fool the eye right now and make it look like it's brown, like it's her brown hair, but if I go too much more, it's going to really start exposing the green of it. So then to turn that off, we just poke this guy, and then it tries to capture, I know some of this doesn't look like it's really on there, but it is. Okay, so I'm going to do the Control 0. And now I want to knock out the outside part of this. Now make sure that you are on the mask, because if you try to knock out, we do the inverse of this. We want the outside part of it. you do the inverse and you don't have it on the mask, I just want to show you what it looks like because you're going to freak out when it happens. Okay, make sure this is black and white. You're going to freak out when it happens because you're going to go Alt backspace. You're like, ah, it's all black. What happened? Okay, that's because you are on the photo itself. Hence the reason why we always make sure that we don't mess the original. Okay, so make sure that you're on the mask and make sure that you have black. And then we do Alt backspace. Okay, let's go check out her hair. And deselect it, Control D. And it's pretty convincing that it's her hair. And if you didn't know that there was green in there, you wouldn't be able to tell. Okay, but I told you we're going to come back with this and we're going to blur it just a little bit because the outside edges of the hair really are kind of blurry. So we're going to take this guy, the blur tool. Again, we're going to go with the strength just like it was on this, but this one functions a little bit different. This is how fuzzy we want it to go. Okay, so if I did it 100, this is blurring the mask. It's not blurring the hair, it's blurring the mask. So if I do this, again, functions just like the little brush tool thing. We want it to be soft. And if I come back and I blur it just like that, you see the difference? That's, let me go a little bit closer so you can see it. So if I do it that's the blur, that's without the blur. Blur. There you go. So it's pretty convincing. I could still come back and probably brush in some more of this over here, but I'm going to just leave it as it is. I think it's pretty good, at least for the tutorial. The one thing that we need, though, if you turn this back on, you can see that there is a shadow underneath her. This is another good reason why we keep this background layer. Okay, to finish this and make it a cool cutout, because everything always has a shadow, even if it's that white on or that portrait on the white background, there's still somewhat of a shadow behind them. And there's nothing that I hate more than looking at cutouts that have no shadow. So she would totally look like, okay, is she laying down and her hair's or kneeling down and her hair's flying all over the place? Well, let's make it look like she's jumping. Okay, so we still have this shadow to be able to kind of go off of, but we're going to do a couple of different things. This layer, this is going to be the shadow layer. This is going to be the white layer. Now, if you're going to do a cutout, it has to be saved as a PNG file. That doesn't really stand for pretty neat graphic, but it is a pretty neat graphic, so that's why I try to help you remember. It's pretty neat because it's transparent and you can put it on top of anything that you want to. So remember that you save any cutouts as a PNG file. Okay, but to make this so we can truly see what our shadow is going to look like, we need to fill this with white. And if you remember, you can flip the foreground and background with the X key, and then you can just fill this. You don't have to have any selected. If you do Alt backspace, it fills the whole thing with white. Okay, yeah, poke the eyeball, you can still see the shadow. Okay, so if we can still see the shadow and we go on to this layer, now we can use that brush tool again. We're going to make it black. We're going to make the opacity set to probably about, let's make it 50% for now. And we want a really soft edge. Okay, and then we're going to try to go over the top of what this shadow looks like. Not always does that work, but in this case it's probably going to work. So we're going to come back and we're going to paint over the top of this. And turn that on so we can see what it looks like. Okay, so it's pretty good. It's okay. You can now change the opacity of this to be lighter. Okay, so it's starting to soften. And if you do Control 0, come on, Control 0. Now it looks like that same shadow. Do we like that shadow? Yeah, maybe, maybe not. Maybe we want to add something that kind of looks like her leg off to the side, but look what happens when you go back over the top of that. It makes it darker underneath. So you kind of have to play with it. If you don't like this guy, maybe we just make this a bigger shadow, and maybe we just make it something like this. or we know that there's a leg sticking out over here, and there's probably a leg sticking out over there, so we could probably come back this way. As long as you continue with the same brush stroke, it won't make it darker. But if you come back after you let go of the mouse, it will make it worse. Okay, so let's go, let's poke this and see if we can make this look a little bit better. So if this comes out here, maybe we've got a leg coming up here. Maybe this is the other leg sticking out over here. And we'll go with that and see how that looks. I still don't like it. So let's look at, here's a fast, easy way to do it. Remember that when I told you can use the feather on here? If we use the feather and we do, let's try 20 pixels for now. If we do a shadow under here, right at about the same height, okay, I'm on the shadow layer, still have black, and I do Alt backspace and it fills it with black. Now I can come back and I can make this really soft transparency. And maybe I want to come in with the eraser. Again, same thing works with that little thing. And maybe I want to make this pop out a little bit differently. I want to erase some of it. Maybe I want to make it a little bit tighter. And make it my own shadow. The only way that I want it to make it look. So unless you know what that shadow looked like, that's still convincing, right? So now before you save it to be a PNG file, you need to knock those two layers back off, okay? And then I would really prefer us to go in and crop some of this out. Don't get too close to that shadow because it'll cut it and it makes it look kind of weird. So I'm going to go to image crop. Then I'm going to save the Photoshop file. As soon as you start putting layers in it, now it becomes not a JPEG file. A JPEG is one single flat plane, one layer. Now it's a Photoshop document, a PSD file. But we don't place PSD files in Adobe InDesign because it takes up too much memory. Every single one of these layers adds memory to your file size. So we're going to save, we're going to go ahead and save as in this case. It's in the summer folder, in the summer spread, and this has still has all of our information on it. And this is the PSD file, see .psd. So we're going to save that. Now, what do we do with the PNG file? The PNG file goes in the content folder because that's the one that we're ready to use on the page. Okay, the Photoshop document we save just in case we have to come back and fix something. So I'm going to do a file and save as, if it will let me. The new Photoshop formats doesn't let us do that. So we're going to have to export as, and we're going to export it as a PNG file at the actual size that it is, scale it at 100%. We're not changing it. It is already staying at RGB. See how it kind of looks? It's good. That's what it looks kind of weird on the screen, but that is transparent, so that's good. So we're going to export it. Then it's going to ask us where we want to export it. Where do we want to export it? We're going to Tiger 2022 yearbook in all capital letters is the Tiger yearbook for this year. So we're going to go in there. Here's your content folder, and it's going to be on page 2 and 3 is the summer. That's the one that we put in there inadvertently yesterday, and this is the PNG file. See, this is what I don't like. It doesn't let you change it to all files. This is where you change it, is up here before you even get to this one. So one new thing I don't like about the new upgrade on Photoshop, but we'll just have to deal with it. So then we save it, and then we can check in our little yellow folder. We're going to go into Google Drive, to the shared drives, to the Tiger 2022. That little blue thing is kind of your little lead as to where you're going, because that's still updating what's in there. So once this is all updated, it will show the little jumping Kindly, and the book or the document will be ready to place in Adobe InDesign. And when we get to Adobe InDesign, I will show you how to do that. But for now, I'm just going to go ahead and end this video because we're waiting for that thing to update. So that's it for now.